Welcome back to the Hockey Show, and today we are talking about the Chicago Blackhawks and their unsurprising departure from playoff contention. It's not a surprise, as this team is obviously trying to be bad, but the thing is, they were planning on being bad this year. Of course, they trade away their two young stars in Kirby Dach and Alex DeBrincat, and then eventually they trade away Patrick Kane, blah, 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 whatever, right? Well, guess what? This team, after all of their stupid shenanigans of being run so badly and so idiotically in their attempts to be the worst for Connor Bedard, they failed at failing. This team trading away their three best players in the course of a year of Kane, Dach, and Alex DeBrincat, trading all those guys away to be the worst they possibly could be, ended up still not being the worst. And this is what they get. This is what they get for trying to tank in this way, because they were trying to land the best guy when other teams who are actually building a team like the Ducks, like the Columbus Blue Jackets, who's got some young guys coming up the wings, if they could land Connor Bedard to add to their other players who are great, that would be so fantastic for those teams who have been in a rebuild for so long and have some young guys finally blooming, and they're going to finally win some games. They're going to make a great future for themselves. The Blackhawks are trying to land Connor Bedard where if he goes here, since he will have no help anymore with no Kane, no DeBrincat, no Dach, Taze is probably going to leave, nothing to work with. He's going to be stuck on a nothing team with no help, and he's going to be stuck there for at least the first 3 years of his career, unless maybe he even asks for a trade somehow. But here's the thing. They failed, though. The Blackhawks, their stupid management, trying to be losers, have lost at losing. They couldn't even do that, and this team is bad. I feel bad for them because they tried their hardest to make this team the worst they possibly could be. But this team is bad, and somehow they're still not the worst. They're last in scoring, so when you think of hockey and you actually think of, if you go in with the simplest mindset possible going into hockey, you just trying to win games, you think of just scoring goals, right? And they are the worst at scoring goals. I don't know what all that preamble to that was, but they are the worst at scoring goals this year. They're last number 32 in the league when it comes to scoring goals with 173 this year. So absolutely miserable when it comes to actually producing goals. I think they only have one 20-goal scorer on this entire team, and that is, I'll get to those guys soon enough, but that is Taylor Radish. I'll talk about that in a second, which is even more hilarious. When it comes to stopping scoring, with getting scored on, they're 25th in the league, so they're not the worst, but they're pretty bad. 25th's definitely not good, with 242 goals. Absolutely insane. Power play has been one of the worst ever, with 28th in the league, 16.8%, and their penalty kill, not like the San Jose Sharks who I was talking about before, where their penalty kill surprisingly number 6 in the league. They're not that bad, where they are at 20th in the league at 77% killing range, which is crazy, because that means every 2 out of 10, they get scored on a lot on the power play, basically, and I think that's kind of nuts. So all their numbers, all the basic numbers you could look at are absolutely miserable for the Chicago Blackhawks, right? But let's just take a look. So Kane and Domi are their best players for this year. They trade them away. Makes sense. They are their star players they're trying to tank. Makes sense. Getting rid of the two young guys, especially a guy like Kirby Dach, whatever. But their two best guys this year at scoring points, Patrick Kane and Max Domi, get traded at the trade deadline. Of course, Patrick Kane, traded to the New York Rangers, his home state. He is the best. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're some old geezer who's going to be like, well, no, it's Savard. Savard's the best. I don't know. I don't care. Patrick Kane is the best Chicago Blackhawk of all time. In my opinion, I would say, at least skill-wise, he is the most skilled American player to ever play in the NHL. I know other players have more points than him, but he is definitely the best skilled guy of the NHL ever to be born in America. And you trade this icon from your team, and I know you don't have a lot of leverage or anything, but you also didn't need to do it either. You trade him away for a second and a fourth and a couple of players like Sari Yarvi, and I forget the other guy. So a second and a fourth pick for your most iconic player of all time, one of the best players of all time, traded away, an icon, right? for a second and a fourth. Max Domi brings in something similar with a second round pick as well, and Anton Khudobin, who hasn't played yet. So, there you go. So you trade those guys away, trying to be terrible. You bring in basically almost nothing useful, at least, from the Rangers and the Dallas Stars for your two best players this year. Now that you've gotten rid of those guys, let's look at who's left on your team, which those guys weren't doing good anyways. Kane and Domi were only in the 40s at this point. At the trade deadline is still pretty bad. Patrick Kane definitely, he has no help on this team to actually produce points, but still not very good for Patrick Kane. But who's left on this team? Who is now the best player? Who on this miserable team is the best? It is Taylor Radish with 33 points. That is phenomenal that you can have a team with a guy who leads it with 33 points. Second, 31 points is Seth Jones, the joke he is. Those guys, 30 points guys, are your two best scoring players on the team, and they are still not the worst in the entire league, which is hilarious. And they have 4 players after that in the 20s. In the 20s! That is like what a fourth or a third liner is at on a good team. It is hilarious that is somehow how this team is built. I know they're trying to tank, but oh my god. Bring Connor Bedard on this team. He has nothing to work with. Absolutely nothing to work with this team if they somehow actually land him. And they're failing at that because they're only third, so they're going to land like maybe Fantilli at best or Carlson, I would guess, or one of those guys. But it's not Connor Bedard. And so they're 30th in the league. They're 5 points from behind. They have 1 game in hand against the San Jose Sharks, so they could actually win another game and be even more points ahead of the bottom teams. And what's even funnier is that this team lost to the Arizona Coyotes to get knocked out of contention, which is even more hilarious to think about how much of a joke this team is. And it's hilarious to see how a team can go from winning so many Stanley Cups, and it was like 2 in 5 years or 3 and something like that, right? I can't think of it right now. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. And just 10 years later, not even 10 years later, back in 2015, they won it last against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And even then, it's only been 8 years since then, and they're already probably going to be the worst team, at least for many years to come, because they've screwed their entire future with these moves trying to land one player. One player. They've done all this to ruin their whole season. I don't know how it must feel to be a Chicago fan at this point. It's really bad. So that's really all I have to say. I know I didn't really say much, but what's there to talk about when there's a team that, these bottom teams, of course, guys like the Sharks, guys like the Coyotes, not planning on winning much. Guys like the Chicago Blackhawks, they're not planning on being a playoff team. And so it's not a surprise that they're the bottom teams. So really, the numbers speak for themselves. Just look at their team. It speaks for themselves why they're bad. I don't need to explain anything to you. When we get to the Florida Panthers or the New York Islanders, if they get eliminated, then that's when we can actually kind of discuss like what happened to these teams throughout the year. But for right now, this team, all I have to say is the Blackhawks, they just suck. So that's all I have to say. So thank you for watching this. If you somehow enjoyed it, feel free to pick up your free subscription down below. If you liked it, please leave a like, not a dislike. But go down to the comment section and tell me how stupid I am for everything I just said. And until next time, I've been your host, Owen, Too Sweet, and ta-ta for now.